Hello everyone, and welcome back to my channel. Today, I'm bringing you the latest episode in the story of Ly Hoai Ca, where the storms in her life are far from over. After days of calm, Hung's mother suddenly returns, carrying with her the seeds of tension that make the small home of Miha and Hoai Ca heavier than ever. Her eyes, her words, every gesture, all seem to hide something. Is she truly remorseful or concealing another secret behind that calm face? At the same time, Hung has come back from a long business trip. He arrives to pick up Tony, bringing along his longing for home and concern for his family. Yet he has no idea that while he was away, everything back home has quietly changed. Will Hung's return bring the peace everyone has been hoping for, or will it mark the beginning of another wave of turmoil? Stay tuned and watch today's full episode to uncover the next emotional chapter of this story. Early on a weekend morning, the sky was crystal clear and a thin veil of mist still lingered over the tangerine trees behind the house. The village road was damp after a night of rain, carrying the mixed scents of earth and drying straw, strangely comforting. Hung drove his familiar car slowly along the winding path. In the back seat, little Tony sat quietly, his round eyes wide open as he watched the fields and houses slide past the window. The boy couldn't speak yet, but his face was full of excitement. Every now and then, Tony clapped his tiny hands and giggled whenever a cow crossed the road or a kite shimmered in the sky. A wave of tenderness welled up in Hoai Ca's heart, a mixture of love and emotion. She turned back, gently stroking her son's hair. "We're almost at Grandma's house, sweetheart. She'll be so happy to see you." Hung smiled, his eyes glowing with quiet joy. It had been more than 10 days since he last brought his wife and son back to the countryside. Each time he returned, he felt a deep, peaceful comfort, like coming home to his roots. As the car turned onto the familiar red dirt road leading to their house, Tony started to squirm with excitement, his tiny feet kicking eagerly against the car floor. He recognized the scene outside, the green bamboo hedges, the old tiled roof, and the golden dog wagging its tail in the yard. Before Hung could even turn off the engine, Tony reached out his arms, asking to get out. Hoai Ca opened the door and lifted him down. The moment his feet touched the ground, the little boy toddled toward the gate, waving his arms and babbling happily as if calling for someone. From inside the house, Grandma heard the commotion and hurried outside. She froze for a brief second, her eyes widening as she saw the tiny figure running toward her. Then her face broke into a radiant smile, her gaze warm and trembling with emotion. "Oh my goodness, my Tony is here," she cried out, her voice quivering with joy. Tony ran straight into her arms, wrapping his small hands around her neck, his little head pressing against her shoulder. He couldn't form words yet, only soft coos and mumbles, but his smile, his cuddles, said everything: love, recognition, and a deep bond that time couldn't fade. Grandma gently patted his back, her kind smile blooming like sunlight. She could smell milk, the sweetness of a child's hair, and the faint scent of sunshine from Tony's shirt. In that moment, all her fatigue seemed to melt away. "You've grown so much. Grandma missed you so much, Tony," she whispered, holding him tighter, as if afraid he might slip away. Hoai Ca stood nearby, smiling softly. Hung placed a hand on her shoulder, his eyes filled with simple, quiet happiness. The morning breeze rustled through the tangerine leaves, a rooster crowed in the distance. In the courtyard, Tony's laughter and babbling mingled with Grandma's voice, forming a familiar, heartwarming melody of the peaceful countryside home. After days apart, the warmth of family returned once more, whole and gentle, as if no sadness had ever come between them. A morning so calm, so tender, where love spoke louder than any words could. Hung stepped out into the yard, his shoes caked with mud after the night's rain. The morning breeze was cool and damp, carrying the earthy scent of wet soil. He stood in the middle of the yard, observing the muddy patch around the chicken coop. Small puddles shimmered under the soft rays of dawn. "If we leave it like this, the chickens will get sick easily," he said in his calm, steady voice, bending down to check the ground. "Tomorrow, I'll bring some sand to fill it in. The floor needs to dry out." Hoai Ca came out from the porch, still holding a basket of freshly washed dishes. She looked at her husband, nodding slightly, a gentle yet weary smile on her lips. "All right, I'll ask Uncle Lon to help bring some sand tomorrow. You can fix it while you're home." Hung nodded thoughtfully and looked up at the sky. The white clouds were beginning to fade, and warm sunlight spread across their little garden. In the distance, a rooster crowed, followed by the short barks of Vang, the family dog, sounds that made the morning in the countryside feel lively and comforting. A little later, the family gathered around the wooden table on the porch, sipping tea and chatting. Grandma Ha brewed a pot of lotus tea, placing it in the center of the table as the soft floral aroma filled the room. Tony sat on her lap, his tiny hands playing with the teacup, his curious eyes darting from one person to another. Hung shared stories from the city, about his work, his colleagues, and funny things he'd seen along the way. Hoai Ca listened quietly, occasionally smiling, her gaze often turning to her little boy, who babbled in his own cheerful language. After a while, Hung suddenly remembered something and turned to his wife. "Oh, right. Tony's teacher called this morning. There's a charity group coming to the school today to give gifts to the kids. Why don't we take Tony there later? He'll love it." Hoai Ca bit her lips slightly and lowered her head. She looked tired after the long trip, her shoulders still damp with morning dew. "Maybe I'll rest a bit. You and Mom can take him. He loves going out anyway." Grandma Ha smiled warmly. "Yes, let me take him. He looks so happy it'd be a shame to stay home today." Hoai Ca nodded with a faint smile. Her mother gently lifted Tony, wrapped a soft scarf around his neck, and together with Hung, stepped out into the yard. Their footsteps echoed softly on the damp ground as they walked away. Tony, in his grandmother's arms, waved his tiny hand toward the house, eyes wide with excitement at the sunlit village road ahead. The gate closed quietly behind them. Inside, only the faint scent of warm tea remained, mingling with the rustling tangerine leaves and the lingering warmth on the chair where mother and child had just sat. The house was peaceful, so still that even the wind seemed to slow down. It was the kind of calm Hoai Ca had longed for after so many months of storms and sorrow. At home, after tidying up, Hoai Ca sat down for a short rest. Suddenly, she remembered the pigeons she had asked the neighbor to look after. Quickly, she picked up her phone and dialed the familiar number. On the other end, the neighbor's warm voice answered, just as kind as always. Those pigeons you left with me are doing great. They've even built a nest. If you have time, come pick them up, they're ready to go home." A smile spread across Hoai Ca's face, a flutter of excitement like a child's. She grabbed her conical hat and walked down the short village path to the neighbor's house. Sunlight spilled gold over the grass along the roadside, and the air carried the faint, sweet scent of burning straw. When she arrived, the neighbor had already prepared a small wicker basket. Inside were 4 healthy, plump pigeons with smooth feathers and bright eyes. Opening the basket, he said proudly, "Here they are, 2 males and 2 females. Keep them in 2 separate cages, and they'll breed well. I've been feeding them corn. They're used to people now, easy to care for." Hoai Ca's eyes lit up as she stroked each bird gently, her heart swelling with simple joy. "Thank you so much, Uncle. I was just planning to build a pigeon coop at home." The neighbor chuckled, pulling out an old wooden cage. Here, take this one too. I don't use it anymore. Let them stay in here for now. They'll get used to your place before moving to the new coop. Hoai Ca nodded gratefully, hugging the cage to her chest as she walked back home, her steps light and full of quiet excitement. She was already imagining a small two-tier pigeon coop for breeding and maybe for collecting eggs to nourish little Tony. As she stepped into the yard, she saw Hung sawing wood by the porch. He looked up and smiled when he saw her holding the cage. So, got them back? Let me help. Hoai Ca placed the cage on the table, smiling. Yes, 4 of them. 2 pairs. The neighbor said to build a 2-tier coop so they'll lay eggs faster. Hung grinned, rolling up his sleeves and wiping sweat from his forehead. Then let's get started right away. And so, the couple worked side by side. Hung sawed and nailed wooden frames while Hoai Ca measured and cut wire mesh. The sounds of hammering and sawing echoed cheerfully across the small yard, blending with the chirping of birds and the rustling of the afternoon breeze. The scent of fresh cut wood filled the air, rich and warm, as if awakening the garden still glistening with dew. Every now and then, Hoai Ca glanced up and smiled at her husband. Hung met her gaze with a soft, contented look, the kind of peace they both had long yearned for. When the coop was finished, the 2-tier structure stood neatly by the wall, its small tin roof shining in the sun. The 4 pigeons were released inside. They flew around in circles before landing to explore their new home, wings fluttering lightly in the golden afternoon light. Hung crossed his arms, admiring their work. Not bad at all. Give it a few days, and we might see some eggs. Hoai Ca smiled, her eyes following the birds. The evening breeze lifted her hair, carrying the scent of sun-warmed wood through the yard. Amid the gentle sounds, the hammers echo, the pigeons coos, and their quiet laughter, the little house felt alive again, brimming with warmth and life. A calm, beautiful afternoon, where happiness bloomed from the simplest things. In the small kitchen, white steam rose thickly from a pot of pork hock stew simmered with Chinese herbs, filling the air with a rich, warm aroma. The scent of jujube, goji berries, dried ginger, and cinnamon bark blended with the tender, savory smell of slowly cooked meat, spreading throughout the house. Hoai Ca stood by the stove, gently stirring the broth with a ladle, the rising heat tinting her cheeks a soft pink. Outside, the afternoon sun had mellowed. A gentle breeze rustled through the tangerine trees, shaking loose tiny droplets that sparkled on the leaves. From afar came the faint sounds of chickens returning to their coop and the rhythmic creak of a neighbor's rice mill, together forming the peaceful symphony of a countryside evening. At the edge of the yard, Hung washed his hands in a basin of rainwater, glancing toward the kitchen. The last rays of sunlight brushed against his tanned face as a relaxed smile spread across his lips. He sniffed the air, took a deep breath, and chuckled. "Smells so good. Just a bowl of that, and I'll feel like I've had a tonic already. I'll go pick up Mom and Tony now before they start walking home." Hoai Ca turned around, wiping her hands on her apron, her eyes glowing with gentle joy. "All right, drive safely. I'll set the table. By the time you're back, dinner should be perfect." Hung nodded, slipped on his jacket, and led his motorbike out the gate. Before leaving, he turned for one last look at the woman standing in the little kitchen, framed by the soft glow of the sunset and the swirl of steam. A warmth bloomed quietly in his chest, the kind that words could never quite describe. Hoai Ca smiled as she watched him go, then turned back to the stove. The pot bubbled steadily, each rising bubble like the steady heartbeat of their home. She lifted the lid, added a few shiitake mushrooms and a sprinkle of chopped scallions. The fragrance deepened instantly, wrapping the room in comfort. Outside, the golden hue of dusk settled over the tiled roof. The breeze carried the aroma of the stew beyond the yard, all the way to the tangerine hedge. That small house, modest, unpretentious, was filled with the warmth of love, care, and simple togetherness. It wasn't grand, but it held something more precious, the happiness of waiting for each other over a shared meal. In that quiet, gentle moment, Hoai Ca smiled softly, the smile of a woman who had weathered many storms and finally learned what true peace feels like. Just a kitchen with rising smoke and the sound of footsteps coming home. Meanwhile, at the edge of the village, the evening breeze rustled softly through the rows of bamboo. The red dirt road was still muddy from the night's rain, dotted with wheel marks and footprints. A woman in a faded brown blouse, carrying an old cloth bag, walked slowly, weary, yet resolute. It was Hung's mother, the woman who once made grave mistakes, who had abandoned her family and the home filled with memories. Now she was returning, burdened with years of remorse. She stopped in front of Mana's house. The hibiscus hedge still bloomed bright red, just as it had in the old days, only the hearts of people had changed. She stood silently for a long moment, her trembling hand knocking gently on the wooden gate. Man came out, momentarily stunned at the sight of her. You've come back, Aunt?" he asked softly. She nodded, her voice hoarse and broken, as if she feared her tears might escape. I want to buy back the old house. I just hope my son can forgive me. All these years, I've dreamed of the day I could come home, to light incense for my husband, and see my boy again." Hearing her words, Man sighed deeply. He looked at the frail woman before him, silver hair, sunken cheeks, eyes filled with regret, and a wave of pity stirred in his chest. "All right, don't worry, Auntie. That house belongs to someone else now, but I'll take you there. Maybe they'll be willing to sell it back." The two walked down the village path together, the afternoon sun pouring honey-gold light over the fields. When they arrived, Man knocked on the door. The current owner, a neatly dressed, cautious-looking middle-aged woman, came out to greet them. When she heard Mana's introduction, she froze for a second, then quietly invited them inside. The conversation unfolded in a heavy silence. Hung's mother sat timidly, clutching the corner of her bag, her voice trembling. "I know I was wrong, but that house is the only memory left of my husband and son. I just want to buy it back, to make amends, somehow." The woman said nothing for a moment, then spoke gently but honestly. "Property prices here have gone up a lot. That house is worth nearly $1 billion now. When you pawned it, it was only $600 million. I'll need to discuss with my family first. I can't agree to sell it right away." The air in the room grew heavier. Hung's mother lowered her head, tears glistening in her eyes. "Whatever it costs, I'll find a way. I just need one chance. I don't want to live the rest of my life owing my son this guilt." Man, sitting beside her, spoke softly. "Auntie, please don't sell your farmland. That's your family's inheritance. If Hung finds out, he'll be heartbroken." She nodded weakly, her voice choked. "I know, but if I can't raise enough money, I have no other choice. As long as I can reclaim that house, I'll work for the rest of my life if I have to." Then she stood up, bowed deeply, and thanked the homeowner. The woman looked after her, eyes clouded with sympathy. By the time they left, the sun had sunk behind the bamboo grove. The red glow of dusk stretched long across the dirt road, their shadows wavering in the fading light. Hung's mother clutched her bag of money tightly to her chest, each step heavier than the last. Inside her, emotions tangled, worry, hope, and guilt, all pressing on her weary heart. There was only one wish left in her soul, to return to the house she once lost, to see the son she had hurt so deeply, and to whisper a single word she had carried for years: "I'm sorry." Late in the afternoon, The golden sunlight of day's end draped softly over the bamboo groves at the edge of the village. In front of the school gates, children poured out, laughing and chattering, clutching the gifts they'd just received from the charity group. Among them was Tony, his cheeks flushed from the sun, his small arms wrapped tightly around a gift bag nearly half his size. Spotting Hung and Grandma Ha waiting by the gate, he ran toward them, his laughter ringing bright. "Grandma, look. My teacher gave me comic books too." Grandma Ha bent down, opening her arms wide. Tony dashed into her embrace, proudly showing off his gift bag, his eyes sparkling like stars. She gazed at him lovingly, though behind that tender smile lingered a faint, distant sadness. Her glance drifted toward her son, the tall, quiet man kneeling beside Tony, helping him arrange his things, and her chest tightened. Hung had no idea that his estranged mother, the woman who had once abandoned him, was now quietly back in the village, desperately trying to buy back the old house where he had spent his youth. "Let's go home, Mom." "Tony must be hungry by now," Hung said cheerfully. She nodded, gently stroking her grandson's hair, hiding the sigh that almost escaped her lips. On the way home, dusk spread across the red dirt road, the fading sunlight stretching long behind them. Tony sat in the middle seat, still clutching his gift, occasionally holding up his new comic to show his father. Hung smiled as he drove, a calm, light-hearted happiness blooming inside him, a peace he hadn't felt in a long time. When they arrived at the gate, the aroma of simmering herbs wafted from the kitchen. Hoai Ca stood by the stove, stirring a bubbling pot of pork hock stew with Chinese herbs. The fragrance of goji berries, jujube, and dried ginger mingled with the rich scent of slow-cooked meat, warm and comforting. The moment Tony stepped inside, he darted straight toward the new pigeon coop, clapping with joy as he spotted the birds perched on the upper tier. The gentle flutter of wings and cheerful cooing blended with his laughter, echoing across the porch. Hung washed his hands, then walked up behind his wife and gently placed a hand on her shoulder. Today was such a good day. Mom and Tony were smiling the whole way back. Hoai Ca looked up, her soft smile glowing in the warm kitchen light. "That's all I need. Seeing you all happy makes every bit of tiredness disappear." In the small kitchen, the golden light glowed warmly over the simmering pot. The air was thick with the comforting scent of broth and herbs. Outside, the pigeons cooed rhythmically, their sounds mingling with the whispering breeze through the tangerine garden. The day ended in peaceful harmony, a cozy dinner, a child's laughter, and the togetherness of family. Yet, somewhere in another quiet corner of the village, a woman walked alone, seeking redemption for the mistakes of her past. And so began another journey, one of repentance, forgiveness, and the fragile hope of reunion. ChatGPT to NOI. Will she have enough money to reclaim the old house, the place filled with memories, yet also the deepest scar between mother and son? And when Hung finds out, how will he react? Will the crack in his heart finally heal, or will that painful past be stirred up once again? Stay tuned for the next episode to see which path their story will take. Don't forget to leave a comment sharing your thoughts and predictions. Who knows, you might just guess what happens next.
Xin chào tất cả mọi người đã quay trở lại với kênh của mình. Hôm nay thì mình tiếp tục đưa đến với mọi người video tiếp theo về câu chuyện của Ly Hoai Ca và cảnh sát Hùng. Buổi tối mình làm việc rất là không hiệu quả luôn nha. Mình không hiểu tại sao buổi tối mình mình không tập trung nha, cứ điện thoại rồi nói chuyện rồi này kia, mình không có thể tập trung làm được. Ban ngày thì ở trời nó khí hậu ở đây nó hơi nóng, mình không làm, không tập trung, cũng không tập trung luôn. Xong là mình tập trung nhất là cái khoảng thời gian từ khoảng 3-4 giờ chiều đến 7 giờ chiều á. Cái khoảng thời gian đấy là mình giống như bị deadline là dí. Tại vì video mình sẽ lên vào 7 giờ, xong bắt đầu mình bị deadline dí là mình mới ngồi tập trung mình làm. Còn bây giờ mình biết là video mình sẽ lên vào 7 giờ sáng ngày mai là mình rất là kiểu không tập trung ta. làm sao để có thể mình tập trung vào công việc hơn. Cách nhất để tập trung vào công việc hình như là phải rời xa cái điện thoại hay sao á. Thôi chào tạm biệt mọi người, hẹn gặp lại mọi người trong video sau nhé.